Okay, we will now move to the public hearing. Call for review on the Design Commission decision with regard to the public restroom and storage facility at Desiderio. Mr. Clerk.
This is the time and place for the public hearing on the call for review of a Design Commission decision to approve an application for Consolidated Design Review for 10 North Arroyo Boulevard. The City Clerk's Office received 9 letters of correspondence. 7 letters were received in opposition to the item. 2 letters were received providing comments and or expressing concerns. All the correspondence has been distributed, posted online, and made part of the official record for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you. No introduction from me, Mayor, Council members. I just want to introduce Mr. Kevin Johnson, Senior Planner, to present the call for review.
Kevin, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. This is a call for review of the Design Commission's decision on Consolidated Design Review application for a new park restroom facility at 10 North Arroyo Boulevard. The construction of a restroom was previously approved in the Plan Development 33, which was adopted by the Council for the Desiderio Park and Desiderio Homes. The homes just actually recently completed construction at the southeast corner of the site. The park restroom was originally proposed to be 875 square feet, and in response to Design Commission questions, was reduced to 623 square feet during the design review process, and that is the size that was approved by the Commission. And the design emulates arts and crafts period architecture, which is found nearby in the area. The City Council has purview over the Design Commission's approval related to the architectural design and size of the restroom. Separately, the Council also has purview over location and site planning relative to the bathroom. But the question of whether or not the park should or should not have a restroom is not before the Council this evening. As I mentioned, this was approved as part of the plan development in 2014. So the Design Commission held a hearing on May 8th. During which they approved the application for Consolidated Design Review after directing a number of changes to the design. The appeal period for that decision was from May 9th to May 21st, and the effective date was May 22nd. Councilmember Madison called for a review of the decision on May 21st, and there was also an appeal filed on the same day. And the City Council reviewed the request for call for review on June 4th and voted to call the decision for review. Again, the design review is required for construction of public buildings. New construction of up to 5,000 square feet buildings are reviewed by the director. So this application was actually reviewed first by the director and approved by the director, and then the Design Commission called it for review. The park design or approval of parks do not require design review. Therefore, the site layout and building location are not within the scope of the Design Commission for the project. The review of the design review is limited to the architectural design of the building. This is a map of the entire PD 33. Again, the lower southwest corner parcel is the Desiderio Homes, which has completed construction, and the remainder at the northern and western end of the sites along Arroyo Boulevard will be the new park, which is under construction currently. The restroom is proposed at the northern end of the site in the area shown here. This is a site plan. Again, the location of the restroom just north of the Colorado Street Bridge. You can see the footings for the bridge shown here on the site plan with parking and driveway access adjacent. The floor plan that was approved has the men's and women's restrooms, each with 2 fixtures and a sink, and an electrical closet and a storage closet of about 26 square feet in size each, and a plumbing chase in the center for access to the maintenance of the plumbing facilities. The north elevation at the top left is the primary visible elevation from Arroyo Boulevard. Again, the building is designed in a craftsman motif, so it has a shallowly sloped gabled roof with exposed rafters. It has fiber cement shingles on the exterior as well as tile and a concrete base. And this is the design that the Commission approved. Separate from the design review, at the June 4th meeting when the council discussed whether to call this for review, there were 3 items that the council requested information about. So staff worked with the staff of Public Works Department to provide responses to these issues. The first was related to operational issues of the park on Rose Bowl event nights. There were some public speakers that expressed concern about folks leaving the restroom and stopping at the park leaving the Rose Bowl and stopping at the park to use the restroom. According to the municipal code, all public parks are closed at 10 o'clock p.m. and staff there's a security contractor that is responsible for securing all the restroom buildings at that time. Whoops. The second question that was raised was how the location of the restroom was selected and whether other options were reviewed. The restroom was actually originally proposed to be located adjacent to the playground, which is deeper inside the park. But in response to public comments that were received during the design process for the park, it was actually moved to the location specified currently at the request of members of the public. The park is currently under construction based on that site plan, the park design that was approved, including infrastructure to support the restroom in the location that is now shown. And there would be additional costs incurred to redesign the park to place the restroom in the originally proposed location near the playground. And the third was related to the design and scale of the restroom. The scale of the restroom is consistent with similar small structures in the vicinity. And again, the design is responsive to Design Commission comments requesting that it be a more authentic representation of the arts and crafts period architecture. Regarding the size of the restroom, Public Works staff have again reviewed the size and reduced it to the extent that they believe is possible. All park restrooms do have a storage closet for toilet tissue, cleaning supplies, and a utility closet for maintenance of utilities within an enclosed area without having freestanding electrical boxes throughout the park, consolidating that into the restroom building. And again, these are each 26 square feet in size. The plumbing chase in the center is necessary for maintenance, and each restroom has the minimum number of fixtures that are typically utilized throughout the city's neighborhood parks, and they're also designed for disabled accessibility. And that concludes the staff presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff, Mr. Madison?
Thank you, Mayor. I imagine we have some cards on this too.
We have 9 speakers.
Okay. I wanted to just ask, do you have a visual of the location? I know in the report in our binder.
So this is the very northern corner. I'm going back to the aerial. It's that piece that's just north of the bridge there.
Okay, and then could you go to that next visual? So I was informed that it's very close to residents here. Is it the Vista del Arroyo residents that it's closest to?
Those would be the closest residents, yes.
And how
so those are there to the right of that area.
So how far from those residences?
I'm sorry, I don't know the exact distance.
Okay, if you can go back
50
one more.
feet. Approximately 50 feet.
50 feet, 50?
Yes.
I don't know that we would build a restroom that close to residences in Pasadena, would we?
I would look to Public Works staff. I think this would probably be the first that was this close that I'm aware of, but I think that Public Works has probably more definitive answers on all of the restrooms within the city. And again, as Kevin mentioned, this is a location that was based on community input. Staff and Public Works can speak to this more clearly than I can. This is on the planning side. We processed the design review, which was just a review of the architectural detailings of the project and the size. The Design Commission did not have purview over the location. This council has purview over the location. And I think maybe Public Works can elaborate a little bit more, if you'd like, Councilmember Madison, as to why it's proposed in this location.
Sure.
Mr. Malloyan?
I hope I can be heard. Honorable Mayor and council members, if Councilmember Madison recalls, I think 2 years ago when we were doing the CIP budget adoption, he requested that a community meeting be set with his constituents to look at the location of the restroom. Staff had originally recommended that the restroom be close to the play area, and it's on the other side of, in this picture, it would be on the other side of that bridge. But when we had the community meeting, there were residents from the adjacent homes, from Habitat for Humanity, and also other community members that wanted to relocate the restroom to be closer to the street for several reasons. One of the reasons was for security. They wanted to make sure that the PD could see the structure while they were driving. And second, it was, I believe, Habitat for Humanity didn't want the restrooms to be close to their homes. So this was the next logical location that we could find away, 50 feet away from the residents, of course, and also location that was amicable at that time to the community. So staff took the advice of the community at that time and designed the location.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't recall that myself, but I take it there was not another community meeting at that point to float this area, because I'm sure these residents who, you know, these residents have had quite a bit of trauma as not just as a result of this project, but also the unfortunate phenomenon of suicides, you know, from the bridge. We had 3 in 1 week, just recently, just days ago, and but I'm also concerned about the proximity to the street, because that certainly would invite people who are at the Rose Bowl or events or driving back and forth to stop and use that restroom. Is that the intent?
Councilmember, that's not the intent. I don't think it's a destination restroom. Usually, folks who are going to use the park, they're going to use this restroom. Obviously, the gates to the parking lot will be closed, and the restroom will be closed at 10 p.m. So if there are anybody who's trying to use the restroom will not have access to them after 10 p.m.
Steve, do you mind, is there parking on Aurora, so once the gates close? I don't think there's parking on that street, right? So they can't park.
There shouldn't be, but I mean, that's a concern too. And then there was a statement on page 12 about similar structures. Wonder, could we go to that?
Councilmember Madison, do you
Page 12, I believe.
Of the staff report?
Of the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Scale is consistent with similar small structures in the vicinity. I confess I don't have any idea what that means.
I think the intent was looking at other accessory structures within the area. There's no other bathrooms necessarily that are right adjacent. Obviously, as you get into the Lower Arroyo and you get into Area H, and there are some restrooms there, and maybe Public Works can discuss the size of those. I know this is proposed to be no larger than any of those.
But, I mean, Area H is a massive area. I think the idea should be that there's some scale here, and I think that's one of the things that people are, I mean, I have a letter from WPRA, for example, where they take strong issue with the scale of this design compared to, what they describe as neighborhood pocket parks, which I agree with.
Sure, and maybe Public Works can speak as to why the size is what it is.
Okay. Lauren Pluth, Public Works, for the record. The proposed restroom at Desiderio is consistent with a typical neighborhood park restroom. The majority of our neighborhood park restrooms are the 2-stall per side configuration. The closest neighborhood park to Desiderio Park would be Singer Park. The park restroom there is a very similar size and layout. Other nearby structures include several of the Brookside Park restrooms, which again are, well, there's a variety of sizes, but representative examples at Brookside Park would be consistent with the proposed Desiderio design.
And Honorable Mayor, I would like to correct, the actual dimension is 82 feet from the property line for the corner of the restroom. And there were 2 meetings held, one on April 27, 2017, and October 11, 2017, where we had this discussion with the community.
So I know I have gotten correspondence, and by the way, let me correct, the letter from WPRA actually uses the phrase tiny neighborhood park. So, and you know, that was the idea of this park, was that it would be essentially a pocket park or a small neighborhood park with a targeted age of pretty young children, if I recall. Is that right?
And very passive in nature. We talked about meadow-like feel. We talked about not having many improvements that you might see at other park, aside from the tot lot, obviously. And again, the park site itself is 3.84 acres. With respect to the location, again, if that's going to be a concern, I think that's going to be not really necessarily an issue with design review.
Well, I think the 3.8 acres is a little misleading because that includes the area that I consider repatriated to the Arroyo. What's the actual area of the tot lot?
The park or just the tot lot itself?
Yes.
We don't have that information offhand as far as the exact square footage
Probably a
of
couple hundred square
the
feet.
tot lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's very tiny.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Councilmember, if I might, could you put a graphic up of the park and the design for the park with the bathroom on that? Do you have that graphic?
Oops. Sorry, the last slide.
Lauren, if you have one that's not digitized, you can put Mr. Booth. You put one right in front of
I think he has that, that's exactly.
There you go. This is representative. So this represents the concept design as approved as a part of the plan development. The play area is the brown section to the lower right-hand area, the southeast area of the park. Because this was a concept rendering at the time, the shape of the playground has modified slightly in the construction documents, but the size shown here is representative.
Yes.
Pardon?
I like, if I might continue,
Please.
I'd like to ask staff to just point out the current location of the bathroom and that was recommended by the neighbors and the location that was recommended by the staff.
So Lauren, is that correct in the red box there?
The red box is representative of the existing proposed location of the restroom. The original location was proposed immediately north of the play area, in between the play area and the parking lot. So,
Okay.
Kevin, if you can move.
Somewhere around where those street
That's
trees are.
that's representative of the original proposed location.
Thank you, Mr. Madden.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the neighbors recommending because I don't think the Habitat neighbors were in their homes yet. I get that maybe Habitat expressed a view, but it's not clear to me. I mean, are you saying the Vista Del Arroyo neighbors wanted it moved closer to their homes?
The meeting included Vista Del Arroyo neighbors as well as the executive director of San Gabriel Valley Habitat for Humanity. The residents were not yet in the homes.
I mean, I've received a lot of correspondence about this. There are much smaller restrooms that can accommodate a tiny neighborhood park like this. And I'm really baffled why, you know, even tonight on the agenda, there was something about a sales tax increment. And here we're proposing to spend about $1 million on a large restroom adjacent to Arroyo Boulevard, which is heavily trafficked. I don't get it. Did staff consider the smaller one-stall configurations, maybe tucked back near the in between the two areas?
Again, Councilmember Madison, I apologize for, this is a CIP project, so I want to make sure that Public Works has the opportunity to answer.
Staff started with what has been established as the typical park restroom. At least over the last 10 years, if not more, the city has moved in the direction to replace our aging park restrooms with newer restrooms that are consistent with the configuration shown here in tonight's presentation. So this 2-stall per side configuration would be considered the neighborhood park standard.
Well, it may be a practice, but I don't know that it's contained in any, that hasn't been codified in any standard, has it?
No.
Yeah, so I don't know why we can't be flexible and adapt to the situation. I mean, I just don't think we're expecting that intensity of use. And I don't know what's next. Are we going to propose putting these massive 2-stall restrooms throughout the Arroyo? Because there's recreation that occurs there too. Am I correct that it's approaching $1 million as we sit here?
The proposed cost estimate for this restroom at 600 square foot is about $700,000.
And
with the design element would be close to $1 million. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, I'll have some more comments probably later, Mayor. But
Thank you, Mr. Madison. Mr. Masuda?
Thank you, Mayor. Ara and David, I know a lot of the questions, the last time we were here, they were talking about who would be using the restrooms. And then now you're saying that the park will close at 10 p.m., but there are some Rose Bowl events that last longer than 10 p.m., especially during football games. So the restrooms will be used by people, but you're saying at 10 o'clock, those people are out of luck.
Correct. At 10 o'clock, the restroom will be locked, and also the parking lot gate will be locked, so nobody can park or use the restroom after 10 p.m.
And is the community pleased with the new location that you're talking about? Because location was okay, they're not happy with that, all right. So now we're talking about the size. When you say you brought it down from 800 plus square feet to 623 square feet, that tells me that it's about the size of a 2-car garage.
Approximately size of a three-car garage. So it's 20 by 30, approximately.
20 by 30. Then Mr. Madison was concerned about the size. How small can you go, or how much smaller can you go so that it's a good restroom for that size of a park?
I think staff has done a great job with the consultant to minimize, and this is the smallest that we can have. If you look at the restroom itself, it has 2 small closets, which are 3 by 7. One is for electrical room. The other one is for park equipment and utilities there. The rest is basically the restroom with 2 fixtures, which is minimum. For men is 1 fixture with 1 urinal. For women is 2 stalls with a sink. So they're the minimum that we would recommend. As staff, this is our smallest that we recommend in any park. Eventually, it's going to get to a point that we can make it smaller, but then we want to be functional. And then if we built this for next 40, 50 years, we have to be able to live with it and maintain it. It's going to be a maintenance challenge for staff if we don't have the chase. So even if we can cut it down by another 100 square feet, it will not make any difference as far as what the residents are here for, they don't want the restroom. So that's the main question that they have. But if we're going to have a restroom, I highly recommend that we keep this floor plan as much as possible. This would be staff's recommendation, for it to be functional and for it to be able to, for staff to be able to maintain it in the future.
Yes. Just a question, if you don't mind, Gene. And Ari, I've seen designs now where there is kind of a shared sink area and then individual, I guess this kind of gender mixing. Is there a layout that would be smaller, that would still allow it to be functional, that's more contemporary? I mean, this design seems to be...
Correct. I mean, I don't know if that would be something that the public wants to share. I mean, you want to, the gender separation has been an issue for a long time, and people want to use their distinct restrooms. Again, we're going to reduce it by 30 square feet or 40 square feet.
So the building is still the same size?
Yeah, it's not going to make a big difference. It's not addressing the main issue.
We have, why don't we hear from the speakers, and then we can do another round. Ms. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Nikhil Adarkar? I'm sorry, I know I'm mispronouncing that. Nina Chomsky, and then Jeff Michael. Please pronounce your name. Sorry about that.
No problem. Hello, my name is Nikhil Adarkar, and I want to thank you guys for taking the time to let the community voice their concerns. I just want to start off by saying how excited my friends and I have been about hearing that we're integrating affordable housing into our community. And I'm really looking forward to how we're showing leadership in this important area, and I think we all should share this pride. All eyes are going to be on this experiment to see if the integration of affordable housing can succeed in Pasadena. It is critical that we do everything in our power to make sure that this addition to our community is a success. The veterans and public servants who are moving into the community deserve the best chance at a safe environment for them and their families. The construction of a bathroom of this size, and especially in this location, however, can jeopardize the success of this nascent experiment. The proposed location by the street creates not only a traffic nuisance, but also the size of the bathroom and just the fact that it's a public restroom invites illicit activity. So in terms of the traffic nuisance, there's plenty of events that occur before 10 p.m. at the Rose Bowl, especially I think recently there have been a lot of Arroyo Seco weekend music festivals that have taken place during the day, and this bathroom will be heavily trafficked during that time. Additionally, I have firsthand experience with some of these public restrooms. I remember when I was little, we're playing Little League. We'd play our games down at Jackie Robinson Field, and we weren't allowed to use the bathrooms, even at 8 in the morning, because of the frequent drug activity in those bathrooms. And even to walk by them on the way to the field or the way to the parking lot, we were required to have a parental escort. So I think that it's not necessarily the best way to welcome our new neighbors by placing their children in a potentially dangerous environment that will be in an area that will be heavily trafficked. This experiment is a lot of change for our community, and I think it's important for us to focus on the main objective and succeed in creating an affordable housing paradigm that works. Thank you.
Thank you. Nina Chomsky, followed by Jeff Michael, followed by Marcy Salway.
I have something to
Post?
put under the
Project.
projector.
1 second. Put it up. There's a red dot. You want to put it into the middle of the put the center of the red dot. There you go. That's upside down. If you want to flip it, there you go. That's okay. Perfect. Right there.
Good evening. I'm Nina Chomsky here on behalf of the Linda Vista Annandale Association. Last time we were here, we expressed our concerns about the traffic on Arroyo Boulevard there, going in and out, mainly out, from Rose Bowl and Central Arroyo events. And I don't know where the 10 p.m. came from. It's rather irrelevant. It's events all day long. And yes, some finish before 10, many finish after 10. But nobody will know if the restroom is open or closed. There's going to be a big sign. They are going to, on the way out particularly, stop, park illegally, disrupt the traffic, and it's going to ripple back into the Central Arroyo and the neighborhoods. These streets were never designed for the level of Rose Bowl and Central Arroyo event traffic. And Mr. Gordo, I'm sorry he's not here, but also Mr. Madison said, bring more information about this. And I find the discussion in the staff report just unresponsive. Doesn't discuss at all what to do about the Rose Bowl traffic. Who's managing? Who's going to take care of this? Who's going to be sure that people are not parking? Are we going to pay for more police and parking illegally and turning in illegally? It won't even matter whether there's a closure of this or a closure of that. It's just a bad idea. The Linda Vista Annandale Association is concerned about that. Also, we think it's too big and obviously in the wrong place. Too big. Here's something you can look at. Here are the proposals for small bathrooms connected to the Arroyo by your AAG consultants. We certainly paid enough money to them. And here's what they had to say about restrooms that are adjacent to the Arroyo. Restroom design should be natural, quote, light on the land, unquote, and blend into the environment to the extent possible. And several of these are rather odd, but one or two are kind of sort of neat. This is what you paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to hear about. And I think there are some other proposals. Several really quick last things on the neighborhood park. This is a neighborhood park. It's for the Habitat for Humanity children, 25 or so, and the immediate neighbors. People will walk to it. And our Linda Vista Park, neighborhood park, we spent 10 years planning it, getting the money. Last question I asked before we left the room was, where's our bathroom? And we were told by the staff, and I believe Mr. Pluth was there, sorry, neighborhood parks like this for small areas don't have bathrooms. That is the policy of the city. So how this became changed, I don't know. Last point. This is not to say no bathroom. My last argument is move it. This is, we support, I think we can support easily the Plan C you're going to hear about. That's to move it down. It would still be near the street. It would be near the Habitat homes, near the playground, and away from some of the other circumstances that are objectionable. So there is a location, and you'll hear more about that shortly. Thank you.
Jeff Michael, followed by Marcy Solway, followed by Stacy Fortner.
Mayor, council members, I don't know why I brought my notes, because after what I heard, I don't think I need them. Mr. Malone, I trust that you are going to be more creative in being able to build a smaller bathroom than you are able to recount public meetings. I was at those meetings. There were no residents, council, you've been misinformed. There were no residents who said, move the bathroom closer to these people's driveway. We want it there. That did not happen. You said, don't worry about the bathroom. It's unfunded. That's what you said. So don't put in these council members' minds that we asked for this bathroom to be moved. We didn't. And if you can find anybody in this audience who did, I ask you to do it. That's just a terrible recounting of what happened. Secondly, and thank you, Councilman Madison, for representing us the way you have. I arrived last Wednesday, moments after that last body fell off the bridge. I have to see these bodies every time they fall from my home. I have heard that there are some people who believe that let's give the West Side a bathroom because they're elitist and they deserve to have the same type of structures that the rest of the city does. I'm not elitist. I live next to an area where the coroner's van has permanent parking. No, I mean, do you understand that? So my final point is, as you consider this, how you shrink the bathroom, and please do, and please move the bathroom, consider delaying this project until you put into construction the suicide prevention measures that this body has funded. Because no council, no governmental body invites its public to come to an area that it knows is unsafe. This area is unsafe. Are you really going to invite children to play in the very areas where human bodies have fallen and continue to land? That's unconscionable. I watched you swear in this commission, these commission members, and
Mr. Michael,
I'm sure, thank
could
you.
you
One
please-
last point.
Yeah.
The one thing that was not included in that swearing in was first do no harm. I'll leave it at that.
Marcy Solway, followed by Stacy Fortner, followed by Dan Beal.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and Vice Mayor. I am Marcy Solway. I'm sure you're familiar with me and many things that you've received from me. I just don't understand one question. There's a 3.8 acre park. Why are we cramming a playground, parking, and a bathroom on that side when the whole area down Arroyo Boulevard near Westminster exists? Plan C shows a playground on the other side of the bridge where no one can jump. You can put parking there and you can put a small restroom. I have witnessed personally 10 suicides last year. I'm sitting at my dining room table and I hear a sound and this plot, there's a person right outside dead. I have seen 10 of these. I cannot imagine that a child who will be playing in your tot lot could ever look at what falls from that bridge and go on and live a normal life. It is a terrible thing, and until you do something about stopping people from jumping from that bridge, the park should cease. Currently, if you want to build your park, take it out of harm's way and put this bathroom, play area, and parking down on Arroyo Boulevard close to Westminster. No one will see driving up Arroyo Boulevard a little bathroom that is stuck there. They won't even have an idea there's a bathroom there. It has to end. This is ridiculous. Thank you.
Stacy Fortner, followed by Dan Beal, followed by Omar Leyva.
Good evening, City Council members, and thank you for your service to our community. And I apologize for reading, but I have a lot to say, so I had to write it down. To begin with, council members have suggested that because the cost of this park is so high, the park needs to benefit all residents. Hence the addition of the restroom in the 11th hour way back in October of 2014. And if you go back to the videotapes, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. At that time, it was pointed out by Mr. Tornick at the October 27, 2014 council meeting that lion's share in cost of this park is building demolition and fees incurred due to the nature of those buildings, but that it is a good value as the city did not pay a lot of money for the dirt. The beautification of this wonderful space, which is seen by hundreds of thousands visiting our esteemed Rose Bowl every year, is an incredible benefit to all the residents of this city. It was originally $1.5 million. Now it's $3.4. And now we want to add another $1 million on top of this to build this bathroom, when originally this park was envisioned as a repatriation of land back to the Arroyo Seco. And the addition of a bathroom that's completely unnecessary for an extra $1 million makes absolutely no sense, and I think enrages a lot of people in the community, not just the ones that live around this park. Second, in 2007, one of the requirements from the feds was the project achieve broad-based community support. Council decided at that time that not spending a lot of money was the best way to achieve this, and agreed that spending $500,000 or more on infrastructure was not something that would gain broad-based community support. Fast forward a decade, and here you are about to spend $800,000 on the construction of the restroom, not to mention the $200,000 design fee. Finally, council has approved to support a ballot measure increasing our city sales tax because the current CIP budget has millions of dollars in identified but unfunded capital needs. Things like fire station upgrades, upgrading 911 responses, replace streetlights, repair sidewalks, curb ramps need ADA compliance, upgrades to libraries, community
Ms. Fortner,
centers,
could you please bring your comments to a close?
bridges, and 911 shelters. In light of all of these pressing and more emergent needs, why are we spending our money on a bathroom that is completely unnecessary? Not to mention the fact that this council has the right tonight to put this bathroom to bed for good. Thank you.
Dan Beal, followed by Omar Leyva, followed by Vincent Martinelli.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Dan Beal with WPRA. You have our written correspondence, and these are the points we've made in other venues as well. And the points have been very ably made by preceding speakers, so I just want to skim over the top of our three main points, which are size, design, and location, also brought up somewhat by others. Ms. Chomsky showed you some very engaging pictures of smaller restrooms. We also included some in our letter for recommendations on what the size might be. Although it's been reduced to 600 and some square feet, it's still a very large structure. In about a half a mile radius from this location, there are numerous public restrooms, Singer Park, the Casting Pond, several in the Arroyo and Rose Bowl area. And they may be the same size, but they're serving a much larger geographic area, a much larger clientele than would ever be conceived for this little neighborhood park. And it also brings up the point why you need it at all if you have numerous restrooms that are fairly close to here. On the issue of location, it's already been well covered. It's close to the Arroyo condos, and moving it seems an appropriate response to getting it better situated. And last, design. The design has been improved since the last iteration, but we still feel there's some better texture, some better design, craftsman-related design issues that could be applied to this. So I appreciate the council's consideration of this, and thank you.
Thank you. Omar Leyva, followed by Vincent Martinelli, followed by Rita Moreno, followed by Tom Seifert.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name's Omar Leyva. I'm a Pasadena resident and one of the future homeowners there at the Habitat project. We haven't moved into our homes yet, and we have about a month before we move in at a minimum. And just wanted to express the same concerns: the cost, the size, and safety of the location of the bathroom, the playground. And I also wanted to ask to get time for the future homeowners of the Habitat project to get input. We still haven't moved in, so, you know, we feel like we have that hesitation that we don't have that voice yet because we haven't moved in. So I'm asking for that time so we can also get them involved. Thank you.
Vincent Martinelli, followed by Rita Moreno, followed by Tom Seifert, followed by Ann Scheid, followed by Emmanuel Nahara.
I have something for the screen as well. I didn't realize you could do that, so
We'll project it in a second.
Okay, great. I don't know if I have it up right side up or side. Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak, Councilman Madison. I truly appreciate all the help you've done to help us with this project and represent the residents in your district. I am a resident of Vista del Arroyo, and by the way, I just wanted to say welcome to the neighborhood, to all the people that are moving into Habitat for Humanity. We're very excited about it, so it's nice to actually see some of them today. The park was agreed to in 2007, and it did not include a restroom. In 2013, again, it was described without a restroom, and I guess in 2014 it was approved with a restroom. I'm not going to go through the whole restroom thing again. I'm just going to echo what you've already heard tonight. Suffice to say that I'm in agreement with it. But what I would like to talk to you about is what would be the best design for the park. What I put on the screen there are two excerpts that I sent to Councilmember Madison in a letter, and basically it shows you what I thought the concept we were doing was refined concept B. That's the picture that's been put up on the site. And then on the website for the city, there's also this concept C. The reason why I want to talk to you about that is because my question is, what's the best design for the park? The playground and the restrooms built away from the homes will help us with noise and help us with for sanitary reasons. And I think that the children playing at the playground are much better suited over on, just like in Concept C, so that they're not near the intersection, or as you see in Concept B, or the concept that was shown earlier tonight, near the parking lot where cars are going to be being parked. I think that's a concern.
Mr. Martinelli.
Rather than having...
Mr. Martinelli.
Yes?
Can you please bring your comments to a close?
Sure. Just 1 minute?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that having the parking lot under the bridge is probably not a good idea based on some of the history with the bridge there. I would ask the question, why not approve Concept C, which is what a lot of the neighbors here are asking for. Some of the comments that were made by the design committee, and I believe that the design committee should reflect what the community wants, are simply not accurate tonight. Some of the things that Jeff talked about, specifically, I'll tell you that I guarantee you the restroom that you're proposing is not 82 feet from the homes. The homes actually sit right on the property line, the Vista del Arroyo, and it's much, much closer than 82 feet. Some of the other facts that they talked about tonight are not true too. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rita Moreno, followed by Tom Seifert, followed by Ann Scheid, followed by Emmanuel Nahara.
Good evening, council members. My name is Rita Moreno, and I'm a member of the Recreation and Parks Commission. However, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the commission. The commission did take positions on this park and on this bathroom at this park a few years ago in support of it. So I'm here as an individual, and just to remind you that the commission did support this. And like I say, this park and this bathroom have been a fight from the very beginning. And actually, let's go back. The housing was a fight from the very beginning. So I'm not sure if it was Oliva or Olivos, some of the folks here, perhaps, but a lot of the neighbors in that area didn't want you there in the first place. Because, and I'm sorry, hold on. Let me just remind you, because I was at those meetings at the Planning Commission, because folks who are poor, low-income folks really shouldn't live there, because how could they get there? Because they probably don't have cars, and you don't have a bus that goes by there. So how are they going to make it in and out of that area? That was one of the arguments that always stuck with me. And I tell you this because this is coming from someone who grew up, who had to get food stamps growing up. So the kinds of comments that people make about folks who are low income or different from them always stick with me. So it was a fight to get the Habitat for Humanity homes there. Then there was a fight to get the park there because, again, folks felt that that was theirs. That land was theirs. I happen to have money. I happen to live in this great neighborhood, and that land is mine. And it was a fight to get the park there. Then there was a fight to have the bathroom there because, well, okay, the park is ours now. It's a neighborhood park. It's our park. And folks who don't live around here really apparently don't have any business there. And there was a fight at the commission because we felt if I'm out, I live somewhere else, but if I happen to be there and I happen to need to go to the bathroom, I should be able to go to the bathroom. I don't live nearby. I can't just go home to go to the bathroom. So it's been a fight every step of the way. I'm here to support staff, some recommendation. It's just, at some point people have to learn to share. And if this goes forward to other community meetings to get in more input, I'll be there. But let me tell you, it's been a fight from the start because people don't think that others belong there.
Mayor, I need to respond. Ms. Moreno, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
First of all, I think you're absolutely wrong about West Pasadena and the Habitat Project. We have embraced that project.
Perhaps now, but I was at those meetings, and you weren't a councilman at the time, by the way.
No, I've been a councilman.
Back then, I don't even remember you. I actually, you know what, I don't remember you at those meetings, but I know I was at the meetings where you had the folks from the feds at from the Conservation Court.
I just
or
want to
the-
tell you, you're
yeah.
wrong, and I don't think you were at the ribbon cutting that we recently had.
No, it was not the ribbon cutting.
And the neighborhood turned out and embraced this project, so.
And I know that it's turned around, but at the beginning, it was not embracing it.
Well, I disagree with
Well,
that. I
you
was
can-
there before the beginning.
Well, I was
So-
there at the meetings as well.
So I also want to say that you've kind of have demonstrated what I think many people fear, is that you sort of bring an agenda that this restroom is some sort of equalizer, and you better learn to share.
No, it's not.
That's a
It's not on my agenda.
poor idea. And so I'll stop there. I'll have more comments later, Mayor. But
I think that these parks all belong to all of us, and that's what I'm talking about, that they belong to all of us.
No.
No.
I have some comments. The speaker is actually correct, no matter how the crescendo from the audience seeks to diminish her words. And I would invite the speakers who had that crescendo to lessen the crescendo and really listen to what she's saying, no matter how we move forward as a community. Historically, which I find, somewhat difficult to understand, Reginald Desiderio, we named the park after a gentleman who was a Medal of Honor recipient. And it was the goal many, many years ago that this site would be used for affordable housing. Affordable housing is needed for all people, not just people of color, but all people in our community who love Pasadena. But for some reason, it was many, 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 many years for us to bring in Habitat for Humanity to partner with the city of Pasadena to provide, I believe it's 9, I could be wrong, 9 affordable housing units. When a council member refers to a respected speaker, as all of the speakers are to be respected, demonstrates exactly the fear. And to use that kind of language in reference to Ms. Marino, to me, is disrespectful. And I find it shameful to refer to her comments as being ones that would instill fear in anyone.
Thank you.
Everyone has a right to speak articulately as they can about the issues that they are concerned with. And I would like to say for the record, all of the speakers who have spoken prior to Ms. Moreno, including Ms. Moreno, I think have legitimate concerns, and I want to hear them in the context of their heart, speaking on behalf of their particular views on this subject. So I'm thankful, Ms. Moreno, that you did not say that you represented the commission that you're on, but as one individual with a history in this community, I find your comments worthy of consideration in this debate, and I will not in any way diminish your views or the views of others who have spoken before you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Next speaker.
Tom Seifert, followed by Ann Scheid, followed by Emmanuel Nahara.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I have a, first of all, I'd like to put up, if I could.
We'll put that up for you. Just there's a red dot, center that into the middle of the frame, and we'll turn that on. Zoom out a little, Danny.
This was shown to you before. I just would like to call this to your attention, and I agree with Nina, some of these are a little far out. But the point is that these were developed by Rios, Clemente, and Hale, the consulting firm that was hired by the Arroyo Advisory Group for the One Arroyo project, with the idea that in the event as the One Arroyo project moves forward and additional restrooms are needed, that this would be kind of the model that would be used for those restrooms. And with the idea that the Desiderio Park is an extension of the Arroyo in its natural form. I think it's appropriate to consider these as a model for something to consider. Certainly, the model that the National Park Service uses for their restrooms is, again, something that we should look toward. There are two issues that I say I've raised. One is the size of the restroom, and the other is the location of the restroom. This shows the concept C that the gentleman referred to earlier, and I think that it's something worthy of serious consideration. And I've highlighted in red, you can see here, the tot lot is to the north, the brown area where the tot lot is, and the restroom that I think would be appropriate would be just to the south of that, between the walkway and the and Arroyo Boulevard. I cannot emphasize the issue that will be raised with the restroom that's being proposed in the size and the location that it's being proposed. Arroyo Boulevard is one of the main arteries to the Rose Bowl. At the end of the Rose Bowl events, the Arroyo Boulevard becomes one way going south, and the speed at which the people come down Arroyo Boulevard is very significant, because it's important that they get out of the area as quickly as possible. I promise you that this would be the restroom that's being proposed as is would be an attractive nuisance. It would be an opportunity for people to pull off of Arroyo Boulevard and use the restroom as they're exiting the Rose Bowl. And as I say, thank you. And it's very important to recognize that location and size are the two most important considerations. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Seifert.
Dan Scheid, followed by Emmanuel Nahara.
Thank you very much. For those of you who have been here for the long haul on the council, probably Steve and Terry, I think you might remember that I pulled together the idea of a park and the habitat community being in one project long ago. Anyway, I think I totally agree with Tom and his proposal about the plan that he showed just now. I do think that I pointed out in the letter that I sent that there was a lot of time and effort spent by citizens and by the Design Commission in doing designs for the Vista del Arroyo bungalows and also for the Habitat community, which is a beautiful bungalow court design with enlarged houses, of course, but very reminiscent of our history. I think that any restroom that's here should rise to that standard. And these smaller ones that are reminiscent of what's in the national park are, to me, the ideal size. I personally don't want to go into a restroom that I cannot lock the door. I can lock the stall, but that is not like locking the door. And as a member of the Me Too generation, I don't want to use that kind of a restroom. I don't think people think about it, but it's not safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nahara?
Hello, Mayor Charnick and the rest of the City Council. Hello. I'm getting kind of late to this, so just my 2 cents. This is probably a park that I probably won't visit because it's off the beaten trail, and going down the road will be difficult to visit this park. However, the reasons against it and for it, they're kind of coming from the extreme, from both point of views. It's a shame that people say that people will use this drug for illegal activities when it's only the minority people, I mean not the majority people, but a minority number of people will be doing that. So now you have to blame the rest of the city. It's also a shame that somebody here comes and blames a small majority of the neighborhood saying that they're opposed to it, and that defines the whole neighborhood. I'm not happy that Vice Mayor Kennedy said that he wants to listen to both sides of the argument. So I applaud you, Mr. Vice Mayor. But from what I've been reading, you guys have been changing the bathroom a lot. I know that adds to the cost. So people who complain about the location of the bathroom and changing it again, and then complain about it being $1 million, they're just trying to push everything around so the price will go up and use it as an excuse. Don't be fooled. If the people want it to be moved, tell them, hey, if you want it moved, it's going to cost more money. And let them decide, okay, if is it worth the city to spend more money to move the bathroom or not? At the end of the day, my biggest concern is with the one gentleman who has witnessed, and the lady who has witnessed a lot of suicides off the Suicide Bridge. He is right. We do need to make sure we have the preventions at the bridge before we open the park. The last thing I want to see or read about is about a little kid watching somebody jumping off the bridge. That I do agree with. We need to work on that first. But park being the restroom, for the restroom in the park, just build a restroom. Thank you.
That completes public comment on this item.
Thank you. Thank you for all the heartfelt testimony. Mr. Wilson.
I had some questions for staff. Tell us about just I'm new to this project, so where we are in terms of finalization of the park design and kind of infrastructure associated with completing the build out of the park. I mean, some of these questions are kind of, I call them first order question, what the park looks like. And that may be, sometimes those are good discussions to have. Are we still in a position in terms of the life cycle and the park design that those are good expenditures of time? And
I'm sorry. Yeah,
I'm sorry, whoever's going to answer the question.
Before Mr. Malloy jumps in, I was wondering, there is a relevant planning point that I wanted to bring up with respect to the PD, relative to your question. Can you bring up the site plan? Or the one that...
The full park?
The colored one, please.
Oh,
Thanks, Kevin. So this is the site plan that was submitted to the City Council in conjunction with the approval of the PD. And the condition that Council wrote for the site plan was park layout should generally conform with the site plan submitted to the Planning Commission and City Council during the public hearings, which is this site plan, with the addition of a public restroom. Any future modifications or additions that are deemed not to comply with the approved site plan shall require approval of a new CUP application. So with that set up, in terms of what the site plan's kind of been approved with respect to the park layout by the City Council previously, I think now Mr. Malloy can speak to where they are in the process of implementing that plan.
Councilmember Wilson, thank you for that question. If you recall, in December, we awarded the contract for this project, and we're under construction right now. Rough grading has been completed. We have, our schedule is to complete the project in November of this year. It's a $1.8 million park project that will have, if you choose to go in that direction of changing the design, we probably need to cancel the contract and will probably be exposed to $1.8 million of loss to the contractor.
And I'm correct that 1.8 million does not include the funding for the restroom?
Correct.
That's kind of an unfunded CIP project at this point?
Correct.
Right. Right now, the restroom question is important from, it affects the park design, right, where the mechanicals and the water goes in. So even if we don't have the funding, we need to, at this point, this is the time to get it set up.
Correct. The original, after we had the community meeting and the restroom location was determined, we finished or finalized the park design, which includes all the stub outs for the utilities, the grading, and if we now change the location, there's going to be cost associated with the existing contract, and there'll be change orders.
Remind us, I don't know if this is to you, but I will send it to you. We did approve, I think, $400,000 for work on the suicide prevention, am I right?
Yes, you're correct.
And that really was planning and design work, because we don't really know what the implementation will be. So there is no specific timeline, because I think people have raised some very valid points. It certainly would be traumatic, I think, for youngsters to be in that park. If we, I mean, obviously, even with mitigation, we'll probably still have some highly committed people who need help get off that bridge. But the timeline for some of those mitigation measures, you think, from a suicide prevention perspective, is what, 2 years, year and a half?
You're correct with the public meetings that we're going to have and CEQA and NEPA clearances. We're estimating about 2 years before we'll have construction documents to commence any kind of physical work on the bridge for permanent solution.
So it's 2 years plus construction?
Correct.
Right.
That's the worst case scenario.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Mr. Madison.
So, Mayor, I just, to me, the irony is palpable that we started this meeting with that wonderful video about how Pasadena is the city of ideas and, forward thinking. And yet, what we're hearing tonight from staff, regrettably, is no, we're going to build a massive cinder block restroom because that's what we do. And I really think we need to study this further. I'm grateful that we called it up. I'm grateful for the council's support for this site. That was significant. But we don't want to get this part wrong. And, just sitting here, I'm aware of, for example, down at the casting pond, there's a restroom, and it's a single stall. So one, for use by all people. I don't know, I can't recall if it locks or not, but so there is precedent for something that's more appropriate. And, I get that the staff feels like the community was listened to, but I just don't see how that can be true, given that these neighbors at Vista del Arroyo are highly engaged, and they certainly have been unalloyed in their concerns about this. The Habitat homeowners weren't even identified, I don't think, when these meetings were occurring, so we haven't heard from them. And, with the spate of even additional suicides from the bridge, putting this hardscape down right below the bridge is something that I think should be reconsidered. And I get that that's, delay is not a good thing, but, that would be really foolhardy to put hardscape down in an area where we're going to have lots of kids and families right underneath the bridge where we're already having a lot of the suicides. A lot of them happen right in that area. And I'm really concerned about the cost of this too, especially at a time where we're telling our residents, our constituents, that we need to go out with additional sales tax. I don't think there's funding for this, so basically it'd be general fund dollars that would be used. So that means we're proposing a sales tax so we can do things like this. I don't think we're putting our foot forward, best foot forward, there. So I get that there's a variance of views and opinions about this, but I really think we got to get it right, and we should listen to all of the stakeholders, all of the neighbors, and I'd really like to see staff go back and do that, and then at least come forward with some options with a smaller profile, perhaps a different location. I think it's hard to do this on the fly, what the actual costs would be. Maybe we could save some costs if we sited the restroom somewhere else, but it's a substantial issue. I'm grateful, as I said, for the time, and I really think we need to continue to study it.
Mr. Masuda.
Thank you, Mayor. David and Ara, everybody that spoke, they talked about location and size. What can we do about that, really? I mean, I know that when we spent time talking about we need to have a restroom. But do we really?
So the issue of whether or not we need to have a restroom here was decided by council through the PD. There's a requirement that it include a bathroom.
Okay.
Council can certainly reconsider that and agendize that use issue at a future meeting if that was the will of the council. With respect to what I heard Councilmember Madison say is that it's really difficult to sort of figure out the right location and size on the fly, but what's being proposed or approved by the Design Commission wasn't satisfactory. If that's really the will of the commission, excuse me, of the City Council, I would recommend that the Design Commission approval be denied. And we would go back and continue to work, and I would turn to Mr. Maloyan with respect to what we could do with respect to looking at the location and size, because that, again, is going to be a function of the Public Works Department.
But I really agree with Mr. Madison saying that we have to get this right. And when you put the suicide issue in there as well, that becomes a big problem for me. So why don't we start thinking about what we can do about the location and the size of the restroom?
Ms. McCaustin.
Thank you. The decision on whether or not this park will have a bathroom has been made by the council. That decision has been made, so this park is going to move forward with a bathroom, and I will not support a park without a bathroom. It's inconceivable to me that we would put a tot lot in a park and not have a bathroom. If you have a 5 or 6 year-old child and you say, let's go to the park and we're going to play and we're going to play, and then you're going to what? Okay, ask that little child to hold it till you drive down to the casting pond? No, that absolutely is not going to fly with me. And I do think it's important for public safety reasons to have this typical size bathroom so parents can go in there with their children so they can be safe, and we don't want something that just looks like an outhouse. So to me, I'm a little unclear about how far along these concept plans have been determined, because they do have the city, the city logo on them. So, and is it correct that all the infrastructure is in the design phase right now? The infrastructure to support Design B?
Councilmember Costin, correct. The sketches that you're seeing were the original concept plans that eventually council approved. The plan that you're seeing right now, this is what the PDA approved. The restroom has been redesigned 3 times based on comments received, both from the community and from the Design Commission. We're at a point that Design Commission approved the concept, and we're ready to start the construction drawings for the restroom. The restroom already, the pad for the restroom has already been determined, and the location has been graded, and we're working on the utilities for that restroom location as
Okay,
planned.
so
Those are the facts.
Did the Design Commission evaluate this concept C?
They did not.
Because to me, I don't know who drew this, but this makes more sense to me that the bathroom would be located where it is on this Plan C. But I also think there does need to be more input from the Desiderio neighbors now that even though they're not in, they've been identified as to who those neighbors are going to be. So I think a little more time back at the Planning Commission, the Design Commission would be helpful, because we do want to get this right. We want to have a bathroom. We're sending a message when we develop a park that says, please come here, bring your children, let's play. And we want it to be safe, and we want it to be appropriate for those users. And the good news is we do have the money to build this park in our to build the bathroom in our residential impact fees. So we want to design it right, because we will be able to get it funded through the residential impact fee program. And So I think I'm supporting Mr. Madison's idea of sending it back to, even though we've not been in that much agreement on this, I think we're in agreement tonight, that we'll send this back to the Design Commission to have them reevaluate the design. And my personal suggestion would be to take a second look at Concept C and come back with a final design with a bathroom after there's been an opportunity for more public input.
I just want to clarify before I call on the Vice Mayor. Concept C would be redoing the PD.
Oh, I'm sorry,
so
I forgot to mention that. So you're right, my note here says that a revised site plan needs a new CUP or a new PD?
According to the condition of approval, Councilmember McAustin, site plan that's different from the one presented on the screen tonight would require a new conditional use permit. Alternatively, the city council can agendize and just amend the PD outright.
Yeah, I mean, but to go back through the PD process when the project that's already been let and is under construction.
Well, it sounds like we don't have to go back through the PD process.
Well, even to amend the CUP, when you have an approved contract that's been let and is under construction, I think is. There are a couple of different. I'd like to unbundle this a little bit, if I may, Vice Mayor, just for a minute. There are a couple of different issues here. One has to do with going back to the beginning. What I would say, going back to the beginning on the site plan. I'm not prepared to do that. The site plan was the subject of a great deal of discussion. You can make an argument that you like C better than B, but given this is effectively B that's on the screen. But then you get involved with, if you put the restroom down in that corner, there's a great difference. I mean, I remember some of those discussions. No access to service the restroom down at that quadrant. I mean, you may be prepared to revisit that. I wouldn't recommend it. With regard to the restroom location, that was not specified in the approval that the council made. I think that there is, frankly, a compelling argument to relocate the restroom from the little red rectangle where it is currently to the little red rectangle that's more proximate to the playground, which makes sense to me. That does not require going back through the PD process, and it was not even the subject of the Design Commission's approval. They were specifically precluded from dealing with the location. It wasn't before them. So if the council wants to direct staff to relocate the restroom from the upper location, I'll call it, to the lower location on this graphic, I think that's within our authority and doesn't require overturning the Design Commission's approval. The final point that is in contention, so I would support the idea of directing staff to relocate the restroom.
Okay.
The final point in terms of the design of the restroom, and I've been actively engaged with Mr. Seifert and others in terms of the AAG's process, in terms of talking about what's appropriate and what should be light on the land, et cetera. It's not exactly the same thing. This site, although it's been characterized as a repatriation of the Arroyo, is not really part of the lower Arroyo in terms of the kinds of facilities that are being described in terms of the AAG's plan. This is more in the, this is sort of a hybrid. It's somewhere in between. It's somewhere between a neighborhood park, a la Singer Park or Grant Park or one of the other parks that we have, and the Arroyo. The Arroyo restroom design that was shown in the graphic multiple times and is recommended is really more in the nature of what the national, sort of a National Park Service location, more than a neighborhood park. The staff's position, I mean, they've been characterized as being unimaginative and not progressive, but they want to not build a substandard restroom. They want to have a restroom that is more consistent with the neighborhood park designation and design than for hikers in the Arroyo. that wouldn't even be connected to plumbing, very likely. So it's a really different kind of a construct. So I'm ambivalent about the design issue.
I think staff did a good job in, we've spent a lot of time on restrooms in parks here, and we made a determination that we're not going to, redesign from scratch every restroom. So I think staff has done a good job on trying to sort of tweak our design and make it appropriate for
and characterizing this as massive, a 600 square foot building, although it's bigger than what some of the neighbors might want, is hardly a massive location. And I think if it was located at the lower location rather than the upper location, I think it would address some of the concerns about delaying traffic on Arroyo and being a Rose Bowl nuisance. But I just wanted to, I'm not, so I just wanted to sort of summarize, but I think it's important, at least from my point of view, I'm not prepared to reopen the fundamental design of the park, given Councilmember Wilson's line of questioning in terms of where we are in that process today.
I want to, thank you. I want to go back and follow up on some of that with Ara. I'm not sure I clearly understood. So this project is under construction?
Yes, ma'am.
To what extent?
As I mentioned, we have finished the rough grading, and we're now in the midst of installing utilities, underground utilities.
Oh, okay. So to install the utilities from, I'm looking at Plan B, which is on the screen, to move from the westerly side to the easterly side, which is, I think, what we're talking about. That would not require a major revision to your plans? The
utilities will not require any major revision to the plans, depending on the location. There is a bioswale that we designed and part of our future plan to install at the park, that it's kind of running parallel with that walkway. So we have to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the bioswale. So this sketch does not show the bioswale, which is another element we introduced to the park for being environmentally friendly and cleaning the stormwater. Again, this is, we will follow the direction of council.
Okay, I think I was a little bit unclear about the status of the construction. So we could direct the design commission to go back and using this Plan B as the basis and get more community input.
I think this is a question to the city attorney if design commission has purview over the location.
Are you asking that we go back to the design commission for the location issue or the design of the restroom? The location issue never came before the design commission.
No, I think you're right about the location if it enables us to keep this project moving.
And we have the authority to do that.
Yes, but I do think that the Desiderio neighbors, the new residents, should have a chance to weigh in.
Okay. But it's not up to the design commission to do that. I mean, we can conduct a hearing to do that if you like. But the design commission hasn't been engaged in that part of the process. They were asked to look at the exterior of a restroom. I mean, that's that.
So this was all really Public Works.
Yeah, and the council.
Okay.
Vice Mayor, you've been patient.
First of all, I'd like to say that I appreciate all of the comments from those who have a vested interest and those who are paying attention to this matter of obviously of great import to the community. And I say community not in the context of the folks who are immediately located near the park itself, because we have to, in my view, look at the Desiderio Park as a resource in some respect for the whole community, even though we acknowledge the fact that folks who live in East Pasadena are not going to necessarily come to this very small park and bring their children here. but every park that the city pours money into is a park for the whole community. And I hope that as we have further discussions about this issue, we think of it, meaning the park, in that context. I have a question for staff. Can you share, Mr. Maloyan, what is the size of the restrooms located at Grant Park, or approximately?
I don't think I have that information.
While I continue to talk, can you please ask staff to find out what is the size of that particular park, if they can find that in short order?
The size of the park?
No, the bathroom. You know, just getting where we are and having hopefully what I think is a healthy discussion about the park, restrooms, the importance of restrooms when you have little children. Safety is always important, and as you know, I chair the Public Safety Committee. And little children with responsible adults who are related to them are generally chaperoned when they go anywhere in a park for obvious reasons. And we can say that and bring that up in the context of what recently occurred at the Rose Bowl Aquatic Center, which is just a short distance, probably less than a quarter of a mile from Desiderio. So we would expect that parents would responsibly chaperone their children wherever they are in this park and any other park that exists in the city of Pasadena. Certain of our speakers today reach a conclusion that I'm not necessarily willing to reach, and that is those individuals who attend events at the Rose Bowl would naturally want to access a restroom at Desiderio. I cannot make that reach. I cannot get there from where I am, having as a child visited that whole area on my bicycle, walking down there, going to the booty slide, all of the activities that were in that area. So it's very difficult for me to believe that those who live in the area would be negatively impacted by, any more than they are already, negatively impacted by folks who would like to get out of their car and use a restroom. I would suspect that our city is smart enough not to make it a neon light that says restrooms here at Desiderio as some way of welcoming those who are not naturally engaged at the park. So I find that very difficult. I think the speakers raise a legitimate concern, and I'm waiting to hear from staff, if they have it tonight, how large the restroom is at Grant Park, because my assumption is that it's smaller than the one that's contemplated here and that staff has shared with us. I don't know that to be true, but I'd like to at least be educated related to that bathroom vis-a-vis what possibly could be placed at Desiderio.
Councilmember Kennedy, with your permission, I would like to respond to your question. Grant Park is exactly the same layout and slightly larger.
Slightly larger?
Yes.
Wow. So I find that interesting because that particular park, which I used to work out at frequently, has two sides, one for female, one for male, and it's very small. And one of the concerns at Grant Park was some of the concerns that the residents had, and city staff did a whole host of engagements there to limit the use, because there are folks in the area that didn't want the homeless there at a particular time, didn't want people using it, wanted to make sure that it was safe. And so there were measures that were put into place to, in fact, effectuate the concerns, the legitimate concerns of neighbors in that area. And I actually witnessed some of that and would question why the restrooms aren't open at a particular time. And what had happened was the residents got together and city staff heard them and made reasonable accommodations related to the concerns that the residents had raised. And you know, in that particular area where Grant Park is, there are a whole host of multifamily units in the area. There's tennis courts, there's a field, so to speak, and the restrooms, and that's basically all that you have there at that particular park. And the reason I raise that, I don't know if this is the exact size in terms of the geography of Grant Park vis-a-vis the geography of Desiderio, but anecdotally, I would think that they are similar in size. I don't know that to be true. I admit that. Desiderio might be a little bit larger. I'm not exactly sure, but you are in a position to share that information. As it relates to the questions of suicides, I think the speakers who have raised that issue, that is a legitimate issue. I do not want to see children traumatized by people who have, a person who has made the decision to end their life by jumping off of the bridge. That is extraordinarily traumatic. It's traumatic for our public safety personnel who have to collect the bodies. It's traumatic for those residents who have spoken in terms of saying that they've actually witnessed someone jumping from the bridge. I think we must, it's not that we may, I think we have to give abundant consideration to the concerns that residents and other individuals have raised related to suicide prevention and the measures that are forthcoming around limiting the suicides. We know absolutely that we can make that bridge impossible for someone to jump from the bridge. They may jump from some other area or another bridge in the city. We certainly have enough bridges here, but the costs may be prohibitive. We had an example at Public Safety that I believe you brought, or the director of the health department brought to our attention, where there was identified a bridge and they spent something like $25 million, and there has been 0 suicides after that intervention in terms of eliminating the possibility of those who would like to take their life from the bridge that I do not recall the actual name, but you have shared the name of the bridge and location of the bridge with us on several occasions. Okay. So, consistent with the comments of Councilmember McAustin and the mayor, I'm hopeful that we can have the restrooms built, not in a manner in which it is dissatisfying to everyone, but really compromising in a context where legitimate concerns on both sides can be answered. And I think it's possible. I saw and observed and listened to a number of speakers who are not saying that absolutely we do not want restrooms, but they were talking in terms of size and situs, where we're actually citing the restrooms, and I think those are legitimate concerns. Also, I'd like to point out for my colleagues that at the Rose Bowl, at the South, adjacent to the Jackie Robinson football statue, there are a host of stalls, restrooms, and those restrooms, to one of the speaker's concerns, actually lock. and those are very small restrooms there. And I'd ask staff, are they familiar with those particular restrooms? Just north of the entrance to the Rose Bowl would be east, almost immediately east of the Jackie Robinson football statue. And it would be more restrooms than are contemplated here, but they are smaller in nature and they're locked. You can lock them. So you don't enter into a room and then lock or close the stall. The room itself is, in fact, the toilet or whatever I believe it's a toilet, and you lock it there. Is that something that you actually have looked at, Mr. Maloyan?
Councilmember Kennedy, thank you for asking that question. Staff has been contemplating all sorts of design, and that's exactly what we're shying away from due to safety concerns, because you can lock yourself in and you can be there for hours and nobody will know that there is somebody in there or there is any activities going on in the restroom. With this design that it's in front of you, the partitions don't go all the way down, so you could see the bottom of the restroom, basically, for security reasons, so you know if there's one person in the stall or two people in the stall at the same time. And that's been something that we're moving forward, and most cities are moving forward with that type of restroom design, going away from single stall that can become a residence for some person. And respond to your first question, Grant Park is 2.5 acres, and Desideri is 3.7 acres.
Oh, really? Okay, so Desideri is much larger.
Correct.
Over an acre larger.
Correct.
And that particular park, Grant Park, is used all the time by the neighbors in that area. A lot of activities. It's well managed by the city of Pasadena. As I understand it, the city of Pasadena hears the concerns of residents, responds very quickly to those concerns. There'd be an expectation, certainly by one council member, that when residents raise legitimate concerns, that they would be listened to and that appropriate action be taken. I hope that's the position that you have as the director of that department.
May I offer another solution to the council? I believe you had at that meeting when this project was approved was staff to look at closing the park at sundown instead of 10 p.m. So that's something that you can ask us to impose as another safety measure, that the park and the restroom could be closed at sundown.
And then,
excuse me, didn't all the parks close at sundown?
I think there are only 2 parks that are closed at sundown. Some of them are closed at 10 o'clock. Like Victory is closed at 10 because of a lot of activities that goes on. And Vina Via closes at sunrise to sunset.
The more passive parks like this are closed at sundown.
Correct.
Well, one of the speakers, I think it was Ms. Chomsky, had asked a question related to the policy of the city. And I'd just like to ask, to educate myself, do we have a policy that's published related to the building of restrooms in parks? I'm just curious. Do we have a policy?
There is no formal policy, as Councilmember Madison was correct in his description. We don't have policies on design. We adopt policies. Staff adopts them for best management and best practices. And what we have provided, the design that's been in front of you and in front of the Design Commission, is, in staff's and consultants' opinion, the best design from functionality point of view, from usage, and from maintenance perspective, because eventually we're the ones that are going to have to maintain these structures for a long time, 30, 40 years. And we like to make them more utilitarian.
Lastly, I would simply like to acknowledge that some of your former colleagues, my council colleagues of today, live very close to parks. One of them was Councilmember Joyce Streeter, who lives very close to Brookside Park, and I think there is a way for us to meet the legitimate concerns of the neighbors who have spoken. I don't believe that the word undesirables is a word appropriate for residents in our city. I do believe that there is a police function, and there is a police function at every park if there's a problem. And our police officers are, I believe, well-trained and able to respond if required to do so. I would hope that those who feel very adamant about not having a park, that we could move off of that position and figure out a way that some of the speakers have suggested in modifying possibly the site of the restrooms and honor our fellow residents who, if only in concept, if they don't live in the area. I happen to have lived on the Arroyo for a number of years, never really thought about a bathroom there, but at one point I was one of your neighbors for those who have raised those legitimate concerns. And if I were still living there, I think I would, I know that I would be supportive of a restroom in the park. So if the mayor is hoping that there's someone who would move staff's recommendation with the direction that we move the restroom in this diagram from the site which we had initially talked about, Otta, to a different site that's by one of your rectangles.
Adjacent to the playground.
Adjacent to the playground. I think it's where that arrow-looking thing, if that is called an arrow.
The arrow depicts the playground.
Okay.
The red box is...
So that would be just on this diagram north of your arrow. So relocate the restrooms to the southeasterly location as depicted. Now, is this staff's drawing or is this someone else's drawing?
Mayor, we did this, excuse me, Vice Mayor, I apologize, on the fly vis-a-vis the projector that Kevin Johnson is holding. Maybe it makes sense just to say that it's immediately north of the tot lot.
Right, north of the tot.
Okay, immediately north of the tot lot?
Yeah.
And also, I think, hearing the residents' legitimate concerns that we modify the hours that you talked about. You had talked about closing the restrooms at 10. I think they need to be closed much earlier. And I think, Ara, you brought up the possibility of them closing at sundown. So that would be approximately 6 or 7 p.m. as opposed to 10, which would be 3 hours at the most. I think it'd be, or at least 3 hours before than what you've contemplated. I think if we can do that, I'd move staff's recommendation and hope that a majority of the council would in fact see that the spirit of Reginald B. Desiderio is here speaking to us as someone who's an Medal of Honor recipient, and we are to treat each other with honor. And I think that is a way that maybe we could have not meet all of everyone's concern, but certainly get in a better place as a community than we are tonight.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Madison?
Well, my only concern is, have we had the meetings to discuss that location? Have, as you said, Margaret, have the Desiderio, the Habitat residents been heard? Are we sure? I mean, we don't have funding.
Yeah, when I said that, I didn't realize how far along the process had been. So under the circumstances and in an effort to get this project moved along as quickly as possible, I am in support of the motion.
I don't think the project has moved to the point where we have to decide that tonight. I do think we could send it back to staff, and I think there are really two issues, design and location. I think the design has to be appropriate for the location too. And that this design is appropriate for the other location.
In my mind, design is not the.
The other thing, I want to thank staff for correcting we were actually told by the city manager that this park would close at sundown. So I appreciate the clarification on that. And I do think it's a problem to have just a cookie cutter approach to every park in the city. I mean, for example, if you look at Grant, the restroom there is, I think, smack dab in the middle of the property. You've got tennis courts, you've got,
May I, Mr.
Sure,
Madison?
please.
The bathrooms there are adjacent to the tennis court, to the eastern part of the park, and also you have basketball courts right there, so it would be to the far east in that configuration.
Mr. Madison?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it, and to me, it looks like it's right in the middle with the courts on one side, the diamond on the other, some open space to the west, and then you've got, Caltech and all that. So I think each location has, should be considered sort of independently, and we should be able to adapt. So those are the only comments that I have now.
Thank you, Mr. Madison.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson?
As I mentioned earlier, I'm the newest one to this conversation, and I do think it's important that we do our best to be responsive to community concerns, but I do think we need to look at it in the context of being stewards of public resources, and I'm a bit concerned about the status of this contract. I mean, I walked by this project and they were grading and it was well under construction. So I want to go back to staff just to ask ourselves this motion of relocating the restroom, is that practical at this point? I mean, kind of anything's practical with enough dollars and so on and so forth, but I do feel we need to be conscious of making moves at this late moment, have a real cost associated with it. So at what point do we get to doing something that's going to essentially blow our budget? This is almost a $1 million bathroom, which I still think is the point of standardizing was to get the price down. And I'm still shocked that we have a cookie cutter model, and it still costs us $1 million to build a 600 square foot bathroom. I mean, it's laughable. But setting that aside, we have a $1.8 million contract. They're well under construction. I'm supportive of kind of where the motion is going, but is that a practical solution, or do we stop construction and end ourselves all sorts of penalties and relocation fees? So how much freedom do we have at this point, Ara?
I want to say that we're not at the point of no return. We are at a point, would be a perfect time to redesign the location. There will be cost implications with the utilities, but it's not improbable or impossible.
So is that, thousands of dollars and not tens of thousands of dollars?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure we're not surprised with the bill. I mean, we've all done change orders, and it would be just as embarrassing to end up with a huge change order. So thank you for clarifying that. That makes me more comfortable with where that motion's gone.
Ms. McCaustin, any further comment? All right, so is there a motion to close the public hearing? Any objection? All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any objections?
Mayor, can I just ask a question?
Please.
So the motion is to cite the restroom where?
North of the tot line.
So staff has some discretion in that regard?
Yeah.
Or is it the handwritten
No,
figure on that?
there's discretion. I think the issue is it does have to respect the design. I mean, when I had this conversation with staff earlier, we want to be respectful of where the bioswale is. We don't want to do what Andy was concerned about and revolutionize the whole design. There will be an additional utility charge because it's a longer run to this restroom, but there's enough room to site that restroom as it's currently designed within those sort of meets and bounds without changing the whole design as approved by the council.
Just for transparency, may I ask when we and the community can know, when and how we can know where the restroom will be located?
I think the staff can bring us a revised drawing as soon as it's made.
I think within, if you can give us a couple of weeks to
by our next meeting,
work with the consultant, and then we'll bring it back.
So it'll come back here?
August 20th.
Okay.
All right, are there any objections? All right, that's adopted. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your participation.